I'm Kennedy, 22 female. I live alone in a small but tidy apartment in a city 3 states away from my childhood home, a place I once thought was my anchor, but now realize was just a port I had to leave. I've just started my career as a data analyst, a job I love because numbers don't lie. They tell stories with brutal, unbiased honesty. It's a trait I've come to value more than anything else after my own family taught me that words can be the most deceptive things of all. This isn't just a story about being skipped over. It's about the crushing weight of realizing you are not a priority to the people who are supposed to be your foundation. It's about how a single event, my college graduation, became the catalyst that exposed years of quiet favoritism and financial deception, leading me to a crossroads where I had to choose between silent acceptance and calculated, life-altering revenge. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The build-up to my college graduation was a 4-year marathon of late-night study sessions, part-time jobs to minimize loans, and the constant, quiet pressure to make my family proud. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to an out-of-state university, a decision that was met with a mixture of pride and passive-aggressive comments about the cost. "Are you sure, honey?" my mom, Linda, would ask over the phone. "The community college here has a perfectly good business program." But I had earned a partial scholarship to a top-tier data science program, and I wasn't going to let that opportunity slip away. I worked every summer and holiday break, bussing tables, and doing freelance data entry, just to cover my living expenses and prove I could handle the financial responsibility. I wanted them to see my drive, my independence. I thought they did. As my senior year wound to a close, the excitement was palpable. I'd secured a fantastic job offer 2 months before graduation. The cap and gown were ordered, hanging in my closet like a dark, academic specter of achievement. All that was left was the ceremony itself, the symbolic walk across the stage, the handshake, the piece of paper that represented so much sacrifice. More than anything, I wanted my parents, David and Linda, to be there. I imagined their faces in the crowd, the proud smiles I had worked so hard for. I called them in March, 3 months before the big day, bubbling with information about booking flights and hotels. "The prices are still reasonable if you book now," I urged, sending them links to affordable accommodations near the campus. The response was hesitant. "Oh, Kennedy, we're so proud of you," my dad started, a classic preamble to bad news. "But plane tickets are just so expensive right now, and a hotel for 2 nights. It really adds up." My mom chimed in, her voice laced with that familiar, gentle guilt. "Your father's school doesn't pay much over the summer, and I've had to cut back my hours at the dental office. We can't swing it. We'll be there in spirit." Disappointment hit me like a physical blow, but I tried to be understanding. I knew they weren't wealthy. My dad was a history teacher and my mom a dental hygienist. They had always been careful with money. "What if I help pay for it?" I offered, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I have some savings." The rejection was swift and coated in parental pride. "Absolutely not," my dad said firmly. "You saved that money for your future, for your new apartment. We wouldn't dream of taking it. We'll have a big celebration for you when you come home for the summer." The conversation ended with their promises of a belated party, a consolation prize that felt hollow. I told myself it was okay. I was an adult. I could handle this. I wouldn't let their absence tarnish my achievement. The weeks leading up to the ceremony were lonely. My friends were coordinating with their visiting families, planning celebratory dinners and photo ops. I deflected questions with a practiced, breezy lie. "Oh, they're celebrating with me back home. It was just too much travel for one weekend." But at night, the excuse felt flimsy and pathetic. The truth was, they weren't coming, and it hurt. It felt like they were saying my accomplishment wasn't worth the expense or the effort. The day of graduation was bright and sunny, a perfect May afternoon that felt like a mockery of my mood. The auditorium was a sea of black caps and cheering families. Every time the camera panned to the crowd on the big screens, my eyes would instinctively search for them, a foolish, childlike hope flickering in my chest before being snuffed out again. I saw my roommate's parents waving a giant, embarrassing banner. I saw my friend's entire extended family, grandparents and all, taking up a whole row. WH. And my name was called, Kennedy Miller, summa cum laude. The applause was a generic roar. There was no specific cheer, no familiar voice cutting through the noise just for me. I walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, and accepted my diploma with a smile plastered on my face, but inside I felt a profound emptiness. The auditorium, packed with thousands of people, felt cavernous and vacant. The two most important chairs, the ones I had reserved in my heart, were empty. After the ceremony, I stood alone on the manicured lawn, clutching my diploma holder. My friends were being smothered in hugs and lays, their parents snapping endless photos. I took a few selfies, trying to capture the moment for myself, but the smile in the photos didn't reach my eyes. It was the smile of someone pretending. The loneliness was an immense physical ache in my chest. I sent a picture to my parents with the caption, "I did it." The reply came almost instantly. A string of party popper emojis and a message from my mom. "Congratulations, sweetheart. We are bursting with pride. Can't wait to celebrate you when you're home." I stared at the message, at the cheerful, hollow words. Bursting with pride, but not enough to show up. It was a bitter pill to swallow. I packed my things, left my college town behind, and drove toward my new life, telling myself that this was the end of a chapter. I had no idea it was just the beginning of a much harsher education. The week after my lonely graduation was a blur of unpacking boxes and navigating the corporate onboarding process for my new job. I threw myself into the work, finding comfort in the clean logic of spreadsheets and databases. It was a welcome distraction from the lingering sting of my family's absence. The promised celebration, when I got home, had been downgraded to a casual backyard barbecue scheduled for a few weeks out, something that felt more like a routine family get-together than a recognition of a 4-year achievement. I tried not to be bitter. They had their reasons, I reminded myself. Money was tight. My cousin Madison, my mom's sister's daughter, had always been the family's shining star. She was 3 years older than me, effortlessly charming, and had built a career as a social media manager for a boutique travel agency. Her life, at least through the lens of her Instagram feed, was a curated collection of beautiful destinations and trendy restaurants. While I was grinding through econometrics, she was posting pictures from Santorini. We weren't close. Our personalities were too different. I found her constant need for validation exhausting, and I suspect she found my quiet ambition boring. About a week after my graduation, I was scrolling through my phone during my lunch break when a new post from Madison popped up. It was a professional-looking photo of her and her fiancé, Alex, on a pristine white sand beach. The caption was effusive. "1 week until I marry my best friend in paradise. We are so incredibly blessed that our amazing family and friends are flying all the way to Cancun to celebrate with us. Destination wedding Cancun bound, family is everything." My thumb froze over the screen. Cancun? A destination wedding? My heart started to beat a little faster. That was a huge expense. How could everyone afford that but not a simple flight to my graduation? I clicked on her profile, my stomach churning. She had tagged several people in the photo. I tapped the tags and a list appeared. My mom, Linda, my dad, David, my other aunt and uncle, several cousins, almost the entire extended family. A cold dread washed over me. It couldn't be. They had told me they couldn't afford a $400 plane ticket to my university town. A trip to an all-inclusive resort in Cancun would cost thousands per couple. My mind reeled, searching for a logical explanation. Maybe Madison was paying for everyone? It seemed unlikely. She and her fiancé had just bought a condo. Maybe my parents had won the lottery and forgotten to tell me. The absurdity of the thought almost made me laugh. The evidence, however, became undeniable over the next few days. My mom posted a picture on her own social media page, something she rarely did. It was a shot of her and my dad at the airport, smiling, holding up passports. The caption read, "Off to the sunshine for Madison's beautiful wedding. So excited for a week of family fun." The comments section was flooded with well wishes from their friends. "Have the best time. You deserve a vacation." I stared at the photo, at their happy, carefree faces. There was no hint of financial strain. They looked relaxed, excited. The family fun they were so eager for apparently didn't include a milestone achievement I had spent years working toward. The photos started pouring in. A welcome dinner on the beach. A group shot by the resort pool, everyone in matching custom t-shirts that said Madison and Alex's I Do Crew. My dad, laughing as he did a tequila shot. With my uncle, my mom, sunbathing with her sister. They all looked so happy, so connected. They were a unit that I was clearly not a part of. The #family is everything was a recurring theme, a digital dagger twisting in my gut with every post. My family, who had claimed poverty to miss my graduation, was now splashing around in the Caribbean, their trip documented for the world to see. The lonely ache I felt in that auditorium a week earlier was nothing compared to this. This was a deliberate choice. It wasn't about money, it was about priorities. My 4 years of hard work, my summa cum laude honors, my new career, all of it ranked lower than a week-long party for the family's golden child. The excuse they had given me wasn't a reason, it was an insult. It was a lie designed to placate me, to shut me down, assuming I would never find out. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. They didn't just miss my graduation, they erased its significance. They made it clear that my moment, the one I had earned, was an inconvenience, while Madison's was a command performance. I sat in my quiet apartment, the glow of my phone illuminating my face, and for the first time, the deep, aching hurt began to curdle into something else. Something cold, hard, and sharp. It was the birth of a resolution. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing for certain. I would not be their forgotten footnote any longer. The Paradise Papers on my screen were not just pictures of a wedding. They were exhibits in a case I was just beginning to build. For 2 weeks, I was a ghost. I didn't call my parents. I didn't like any of the dozens of wedding photos that flooded my social media feeds. I let their texts, thinking of you, wish you were here, sit unanswered, the notifications mocking me from my lock screen. The insincerity was suffocating. If they had wished I was there, they would have found a way to be at my event, the one that happened a week earlier and a few $1,000s cheaper. Their silence about the disparity was deafening. They acted as if I wouldn't connect the dots, as if I were a child who wouldn't notice the blatant hypocrisy. During this period of self-imposed exile, my anger simmered. It was a constant, low-grade fever that fueled my long workdays and filled my empty evenings. I replayed every conversation, every excuse, every "we're so proud of you" in my head, and it all felt like a grand performance. But beneath the anger, a deep, gnawing question remained. Why? Why the elaborate lie? If they preferred Madison's wedding to my graduation, why not just say so? The claim of being broke felt like a cover for something else, but I couldn't figure out what. Just as my anger was threatening to collapse back into despair, my phone rang. The caller ID read Aunt Eleanor. My dad's younger sister, Eleanor, was the family outlier. She was a forensic accountant who had moved to the city a few years ago, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who had always treated me like an adult, even when I was a teenager. We weren't incredibly close, but there was a mutual respect there. She sent me a thoughtful graduation card with a generous check and a handwritten note that said, "Kennedy, your hard work is your own. Never let anyone diminish it." At the time, I thought it was just a nice sentiment. Now, it felt prophetic. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. "Kennedy, it's Eleanor. I was just calling to see how you're settling in." Her voice was calm and direct, a stark contrast to the emotional chaos in my head. "I'm good," I lied, my voice cracking slightly. "The new job is great." There was a pause on the other end. Eleanor was not one for small talk. "I saw the pictures from Cancun," she said, cutting straight to the point. "And I know your parents told you they couldn't afford to come to your graduation. I just wanted to say, that's garbage." The bluntness of her statement was so startling that a choked laugh escaped me. It was the first time I hadn't felt completely crazy for being upset. "You think so too?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't think I know," she replied. "I handle your grandmother's estate finances. I see the accounts. Your parents aren't broke, Kennedy, not by a long shot, they're comfortable." This was a bomb. My whole life, my parents had cultivated a narrative of financial struggle. Every school trip required a lengthy discussion. Every new pair of sneakers was a significant purchase. But, they always said, "They've always been careful," Alina corrected, a slight edge to her voice. "There's a difference between being frugal and being broke, and there's an even bigger difference between being frugal and being deceptive." She let that sink in before continuing. "I didn't go to Cancun," she stated flatly. "I told them I had a work conflict. The truth is, I couldn't stomach it. I heard what they told you, and then I heard your Uncle Robert, Madison's dad, bragging about how they were all pitching in for a family investment. It all felt wrong." "Family investment?" I echoed, confused. "What does that even mean?" Alina sighed. "That's the part I don't know, but there's something else going on. Your grandmother, my mother, set up educational trust funds for you and Madison years ago. Small ones, but they were meant to be used for college expenses or as a graduation gift. You were supposed to receive yours upon graduation. Did your parents ever mention that to you?" My mind went blank. "A trust fund?" "No," I said, stunned. "Never. I worked 3 jobs to get through school. They co-signed my loans, but they never mentioned any money from Grandma." "I thought not," Alina said grimly. "The account required a parental co-signer until you turned 25. Your father is the co-signer on yours. The money is legally yours, but he has access to it. Or at least he did." The past tense she used sent a chill down my spine. "What do you mean, did?" "Kennedy, your grandmother passed away 3 years ago, but I still manage the disbursement paperwork for her estate. A few months ago, your father authorized a full withdrawal from your educational trust. The entire amount, $20,000. I couldn't breathe. $20,000. It was a life-changing amount of money. It would have paid for my final year of tuition. It would have covered my living expenses. It would have meant no student loans." "He took it," I whispered, horrified. "Where did it go?" "I don't have the authority to see where it was transferred without a legal cause," she said carefully. "But the timing is conspicuous. It was withdrawn about a week before they all started booking flights to Mexico." The pieces slammed into place with sickening clarity. The family investment, the sudden affordability of a lavish trip, the desperate, flimsy excuse about my graduation being too expensive. It wasn't that they couldn't afford to come. It was that they had used my money to fund their vacation and contribute to whatever scheme Madison's parents had cooked up. They stole my inheritance, the money my grandmother had left for my future, and used it to go party on a beach for my cousin. The lie wasn't just a lie, it was a cover-up for grand larceny. Aunt Alina's voice softened slightly. "I'm telling you this because you deserve to know the truth, and because you're a data analyst. You're smart. Numbers tell stories, right? Well, I have a feeling the story these numbers tell is one you need to uncover." She was right. The hurt was now eclipsed by a cold, righteous fury. This was no longer just about a missed graduation. This was about theft. It was about a calculated betrayal that ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. My family hadn't just forgotten me, they had robbed me, and I was going to find the proof. The conversation with Aunt Alina fundamentally rewired my grief into a focused, analytical rage. As a data analyst, my job was to find patterns in chaos, to extract truth from noise. My family had created a lot of noise, excuses, lies, cheerful social media posts, to obscure a simple, ugly truth. Now, I was going to apply my professional skills to my personal life and deconstruct their narrative piece by painful piece. Alina had given me the starting point, the $20,000 withdrawal from my trust fund. My mission was to prove where it went. Alina, bound by her professional ethics as an accountant, couldn't directly investigate my father's bank records. However, she could provide guidance. The money had to move somewhere, she explained over a secure messaging app. A wire transfer, a cashier's check, something. Large cash withdrawals are flagged. Your first step is to get access to your own trust fund statements. As the beneficiary, you have the right to them. She walked me through the process of contacting the investment firm that managed the trust. It was a daunting but necessary step. I had to pretend to be an ignorant recent graduate, just checking in on the fund my grandmother had so generously left me. The call was nerve-wracking. I put on my most professional, pleasant voice and explained the situation to a representative. I'm Kennedy Miller. I believe my grandmother, Helen Miller, set up an educational trust for me, and I just wanted to get the paperwork for my records now that I've graduated. After confirming my identity with a series of security questions, the representative cheerfully complied. Of course, Ms. Miller. I can email you the full history of the account. I see there was a recent full withdrawal. I'll include the transaction receipt for that as well. It was a wire transfer. My heart hammered against my ribs. A wire transfer? Perfect, that's exactly what I need for my tax records, I said, my voice impressively steady. Could you tell me the name of the receiving account? Certainly, he said, tapping on his keyboard. It was wired to an account under the N. AIM, Madison and Alex Wedding Fund. Bingo, it was the smoking gun. A direct financial link between my stolen inheritance and my cousin's extravagant wedding. They hadn't even bothered to hide it well, confident in their assumption that I would never look. The representative emailed me the documents, and I stared at the official wire transfer confirmation. My father's digital signature was at the bottom, authorizing the transfer of my $20,000 to an account explicitly named for the wedding. The date of the transfer was just 2 days after the phone call where he'd told me my graduation trip was too expensive. The audacity was staggering. But this was just one piece of the puzzle. What was the family investment Aunt Alina had mentioned? Why did they need so much money? This felt bigger than just paying for flights and hotel rooms. My cousin Madison was a social media manager, and her father, my Uncle Robert, was a small-time real estate developer who always talked a big game. I started digging. My first stop was Madison's social media again, but this time I wasn't looking at the happy wedding photos. I was looking at the subtext, the tags, the locations. She had tagged the resort, of course, but she had also tagged a specific wedding planner and a luxury villa company based in Cancun. On a hunch, I searched for the villa company online. Their website was glossy and professional, advertising luxury properties for sale and rent. Then I searched the local property records for Cancun using the company's name. It was a long shot, but public records databases were something I worked with peripherally at my job. After a few hours of navigating poorly translated Spanish websites, I found it. A recent sale of a beachfront villa, one of the ones featured on their website. The buyers were a newly formed LLC. The name of the LLC, R&D Family Ventures. R for Robert, my uncle, D for David, my father. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a wedding fund. This was a down payment. They had pooled their money, including my trust fund, to buy a timeshare or an investment property in Mexico. The wedding wasn't just a wedding, it was a cover story, a celebratory excuse to visit and sign the papers on their new joint venture. My graduation wasn't just a lower priority, it was a direct financial conflict. They needed every last cent, including the money that was supposed to be mine, to close their deal. My dad hadn't just gifted my inheritance to my cousin, he had invested it in a business deal with his brother-in-law. I started building a spreadsheet, my fingers flying across the keyboard. In one column, I listed the family members who went to Cancun. In the next, I estimated the costs, flights, all-inclusive resort fees, spending money. The total was easily over $30,000 for the whole group. In another column, I put the known financial inputs, my $20,000. Then I did some more digging. I found the online wedding registry for Madison and Alex. It was one of those honeymoon fund sites. People could contribute cash for specific experiences. I noticed that several large, anonymous donations had been made, all around the same time my father had wired my money. It was their attempt at laundering the story, making it look like the wedding was funded by generous guests. The data didn't lie. It painted a clear, damning picture of conspiracy, greed, and breathtaking betrayal. They had stolen from me to fund their own selfish dreams, all while smiling and telling me how proud they were. The spreadsheet on my screen wasn't just data anymore. It was evidence, and I was going to build my entire case around it. With a folder full of irrefutable evidence, the wire transfer confirmation, the LLC registration for R&D Family Ventures, the property records from Mexico, my mission shifted from investigation to strategic planning. Raw, explosive anger wouldn't serve me. I needed to be as cold and calculating as they had been. I needed a plan that wouldn't just expose them, but would hit them where they were most vulnerable: their finances and their reputation. My parents and my aunt and uncle had built their identities around being respectable, hardworking, family-oriented people. My dad, the beloved history teacher. My mom, the gentle dental hygienist. My uncle, the savvy businessman. I was going to dismantle that facade brick by brick. I called my plan Project Trojan Horse. The concept was simple. I would present them with a beautiful, seemingly generous gift, something they would welcome into their lives without suspicion. Inside that gift, however, would be the mechanism of their downfall. The perfect opportunity was already on the calendar: the belated graduation party they had promised me, which had now been combined with a welcome home from the wedding barbecue at my parents' house. The entire extended family was invited. It was the ideal stage for a confrontation. My first step was to create the horse. I decided it would be a digital photo frame, a modern, sleek device capable of displaying a slideshow of pictures. It was the perfect blend of thoughtful and generic, a gift they wouldn't question. But this wouldn't be just any photo frame. I bought a high-end model with Wi-Fi connectivity and a remote management feature, allowing me to upload and change the photos from my apartment, hundreds of miles away. The next 2 weeks were spent meticulously crafting the slideshow. It was a narrative in 3 acts. Act 1 was the setup, a collection of warm, fuzzy family photos from my childhood. Me on my dad's shoulders, my mom teaching me to bake, group shots from holidays with Madison and the rest of the family. The goal was to lull them into a sense of nostalgic security. I wanted them to put the frame in a place of honor, right in the living room where everyone would see it during the party. Act 2 was the reveal. This section would be the digital equivalent of a prosecutor's presentation. I used a simple graphic design program to create a series of clean, professional-looking slides. The first one was a high-resolution scan of my graduation photo, alone in my cap and gown, with the date clearly visible. The next slide was a screenshot of my mom's off to Cancun airport post, dated just 1 week later. The contrast was jarring. Then, the financial documents. I created a slide showing the wire transfer confirmation, highlighting the amount, $20,000, my father's signature, and the destination account: Madison and Alex Wedding Fund. I followed it with a slide defining what a beneficiary of a trust is, with the legal text explaining my rights. Then came the family investment bombshell: a screenshot of the R&D Family Ventures LLC registration, with my dad's and uncle's names circled. The final slide in this act was a satellite image of the luxury villa in Cancun, with the sale price and purchase date listed below. Each slide was designed to be simple, clear, and utterly undeniable. Act 3 was the fallout. This part was more personal. I wrote out a simple, final slide in plain white text on a black background. It said, "My graduation was too expensive, but my $20,000 inheritance made a great down payment on your vacation home. Congratulations on the family investment. You have 24 hours to return my money before this entire slideshow, along with a formal complaint of fiduciary misconduct, is sent to the school board where dad teaches, the state dental board where mom is licensed, and the IRS. Consider this my graduation gift to you. The truth." The final piece of the plan involved my Aunt Alina. I called her and laid out my entire strategy. She was silent for a moment after I finished, and then she let out a low whistle. "Kennedy, that is ruthless and brilliant, I'm in." Her role was crucial. She would be my eyes and ears at the party. She would make sure the digital frame was set up and prominently displayed. She would also act as the executor of the consequences if they failed to comply. She was a forensic accountant. A letter from her about financial malfeasance would carry significant weight. The day before the party, I mailed the Trojan horse to my parents' house with a gift tag that read, "So sorry I can't be there to celebrate with you all. I wanted to give you something to remember all our happy family moments. Can't wait to see it set up. Love, Kennedy." It was sickeningly sweet, and I knew they'd fall for it. On the morning of the party, I sat in my apartment, my laptop open, my heart pounding. I was logged into the digital frame's remote management portal. The slideshow was loaded, paused on a picture of me as a smiling, gap-toothed 7-year-old. All I had to do was wait for a leaner signal, and with a single click, I would unleash the truth. I was terrified, but I was also filled with a sense of righteous clarity. They had built a house of lies. I had simply built the perfect key to unlock it. The day of the barbecue was agonizingly slow. I spent the hours leading up to it pacing my apartment, my stomach in knots. I was a remote puppet master, waiting for the curtain to rise on a stage 3 states away. My phone was on the table next to my laptop, waiting for the signal from Annalena. Around 3 p.m., she texted, "Package has been received and opened. Linda is gushing about how thoughtful you are. The frame is on the mantelpiece, dead center of the living room. Stage is set." I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking. I could picture the scene perfectly. My parents' cozy living room, the smell of charcoal from the grill outside, the sound of laughter and chatter as my aunts, uncles, and cousins arrived. They were all there, the co-conspirators, blissfully unaware that they were walking into a digital ambush. For the next hour, Alina sent me brief updates. Robert is bragging about the amazing deal he got in Cancun. Madison is showing everyone her wedding album. David just made a toast too. Family above all else. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. At 4:30 p.m., Alina sent the go-ahead. "Everyone is inside now, getting drinks. It's prime time, do it." My finger hovered over the mouse. This was it. The point of no return. I clicked play slideshow. The first image to appear on the frame was an innocent photo of me and Madison as kids building a sandcastle. From my end, I could see the file name of the currently displayed picture. I watched as the system cycled through the first few images of Act 1, the nostalgic family moments. Alina texted, "People are noticing it. Ah, look how little they were. Your mom is pointing it out to everyone. They're hooked." I let the happy memories play for a full 5 minutes, drawing them in. Then I manually advanced the slideshow to the beginning of Act 2. The first image to pop up was my solo graduation photo. Alina's text came a second later. "Mood shift, it's gotten quiet." The next slide appeared on the screen, my parents' smiling airport selfie. People are whispering. Linda looks confused. Then came the bombshell, the wire transfer statement. A clear, crisp image of my father's name, my $20,000, and the Madison and Alex wedding fund. Alina's next message was a frantic series of texts. Total silence. David's face has gone white. Robert just looked at him. No one knows what to say. I advanced it again. The slide defining a trust beneficiary. Then the LLC registration. Then the picture of the villa in Cancun. The living room, once filled with cheerful noise, was now a tomb. Every person in that room was complicit, either actively or by association. They had all enjoyed the fruits of my stolen inheritance, and now the bill was on display for all to see. Finally, I pushed the last slide to the screen. The black background with the white text, my ultimatum. My graduation was too expensive, but my $20,000 inheritance made a great down payment on your vacation home. You have 24 hours to return my money. I could imagine the words glowing in the dimming afternoon light, an indictment burning in the center of their family gathering. I could picture my father, the history teacher, being confronted with his own sordid history. My mother, the caregiver, exposed as a thief. My uncle, the businessman, revealed as a con artist who roped his own family into his scheme. Alina described the scene in a hushed phone call a few minutes later, having slipped out to the backyard. "Kennedy, it was a nuclear bomb. Your dad tried to unplug the frame, but your mom just stood there, staring at it, her hand over her mouth. Madison burst into tears, not out of remorse, but because her big day was being ruined. Robert started yelling at David, asking why he was so sloppy. It completely imploded. They turned on each other instantly. The facade of family above all else had shattered at the first sign of trouble. Their loyalty was only as strong as their shared secret. What did my dad say? I asked, my voice hollow. Nothing, Alina replied. He just stood there looking at the frame. He looked old, defeated. He knows he's caught. The party was over. Guests were making awkward excuses and scurrying away, not wanting to be caught in the blast radius. The family business they had all invested in had been exposed, and it was ugly. I hung up the phone and closed my laptop. I didn't feel the triumphant glee I had expected. I just felt a quiet, grim satisfaction. The truth was out. The Trojan horse had done its job. Now, all that was left was to see if they would meet my demands, or if I would have to burn their carefully constructed world to the ground. The 24-hour deadline I had set was a calculated risk. It gave them enough time to panic, to argue, and ultimately to realize the checkmate position I had put them in. It was also enough time for me to wonder if they would call my bluff. Would my own father risk his career, his reputation, and his wife's license over $20,000 and a principle he had already trampled? The silence from their end was absolute. No angry phone calls, no pleading texts. It was as if I had ceased to exist after dropping the bomb. The next morning, with 3 hours left on the clock, I received an email notification from my bank. You have received a wire transfer of $20,000. The sender was my father. There was no message in the memo line, no accompanying email of apology or explanation. It was a cold, silent transaction. The money was back in my account, but nothing could ever be the same. The transfer wasn't an apology. It was a ransom payment to buy my silence. They weren't sorry for what they did. They were sorry they got caught. A few hours later, Aunt Alina called. "The money has been sent," she said. "I got a frantic call from your mother this morning, sobbing, asking me to talk sense into you. She said David hasn't slept, that he's worried the school board will find out." "What did you tell?" "Her," I asked. "I told her that sense was returning the money that was never hers to begin with," Alina said calmly. "I also told her that an apology might be a good next step, but I wouldn't hold my breath." She was right. The apology never came. What came instead was a slow, deliberate ostracization. It started with being removed from the family group chat. Then, my cousins, including Madison, unfollowed me on all social media. It was a childish but clear message. The family had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. They had circled the wagons around the perpetrators, closing ranks to protect the family unit, even if that unit was built on a foundation of lies. I was the inconvenient truth, the whistleblower, and I was now an outsider. At first, it was painful. Every holiday that passed, every birthday I didn't get a call for, was a fresh sting. But as weeks turned into months, the pain began to fade, replaced by a surprising sense of peace. The constant, low-level anxiety I had felt for years, the pressure to please them, the feeling of never quite measuring up to Madison, was gone. I was no longer performing for an audience that had never intended to applaud. I used the returned $20,000 to pay off my student loans in one lump sum. The feeling of being completely debt-free at 22, thanks to money they had inadvertently forced me to reclaim, was the sweetest revenge of all. It was my independence, bought and paid for. The rest of the money I put into a high-yield savings account, a nest egg for a future that I, and I alone, would control. My relationship with Aunt Alina deepened. She became more than an aunt, she became a mentor and a friend. We had monthly dinners, and she advised me on everything from career moves to investing. She had chosen integrity over family obligation, and in doing so, she had shown me what true family looked like. It wasn't about blood, it was about respect and truth. One evening, about a year after the barbecue, I was sitting in my favorite restaurant, a quiet little Italian place near my apartment. I had just received a promotion at work. I had come to celebrate by myself, not out of loneliness, but out of choice. As I sat there, enjoying my meal, I thought about the empty chairs at my graduation. I thought about the crowded living room where I had detonated my family's lies. For so long, I had craved a seat at their table, a table where I was never truly welcome. Now I had my own. It was a table for one, but it was strong, it was honest, and it was entirely mine. I raised my glass of wine in a silent toast. Not to them, not to revenge, but to the future. To the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes, the most important family business is learning to be your own CEO.